Everyone. So, 8 days away. We're 8 days away from the final election here in Compton. And what we have to do is show up and vote. Right? The last election, more than 30,000 people showed up in November. This last time, of course, we had only 7,000, almost 8,000 go out to vote. And of course, the big reason that seems to always show up is the misinformation, right? And people always say it's voter apathy. People always want to throw some other things in there, but we'll get to that point later on in this video. But the biggest thing is just remembering to show up and vote, right? One of the big things that people kept trying to figure out, of course, is when can you vote? So you can vote on or before June 1st. There are drop-off ballot box areas, as well as there's going to be in-person voting. So it becomes really, really important for you to exercise your vote in whichever way possible. So I'm going to put on screen real quick the voter center locations for in-person voting. As you can see, there is Burrell McDonald Park on May 30th from 10 to 7 p.m. Compton College on June 1st from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Davis Middle School from on May 29th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Lueders Park on May 31st from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And of course, you can go ahead and actually vote at the Norwalk location, right? The county registrar's office, all the way up to June 1st. So you can go vote there as well. You can find all this information on locator.lavote.net. Locator.lavote.net provides you all that information as well as your sample ballot. And I know some of you did not receive this information of your sample ballot. You actually received your ballot first, then your sample ballot. Is perfectly fine. You can find this information here. Now, the ballot drop-off locations are just like the last election, right? There's the one at Hemingway Park, there's the one at Compton City Hall, the Compton Library, Gonzalez Park, Lueders Park, and the headquarters in Norwalk. Once again, all this information is found on locator.lavote.net. Really important thing to note, though, is that the ballot drop-off box at City Hall closes at 6 p.m. every single day, but it's open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so, with all this being said, it becomes really, really important for us to be able to share and really go out there and vote, right? However you choose to vote, that's on you. But it's you actually exercising your vote. Because this is one of the things that keeps being brought up, that voting is a privilege. And I want to correct that, and not only as a member of the community, but also as a government teacher. Voting is a right, not a privilege. People died to make sure that people got the right to vote, right? Some of us are not old enough to remember the fights in the 60s for the right to vote. But of course, there is a right to vote. And see, there's another quote that people keep bringing up. If you don't vote, don't complain. That actually comes from the revolution of India. Because in India, which is one of the largest democracies in the world, people literally died to get the right to vote, right? And they were facing an empire. We're just facing other people that have been in office for a long time here, right? And so what we're trying to do is just get out people to vote, right? People need to go out to vote, and people need to be the change they wish to see in the world, right? And a lot of times we have gotten into many different discussions throughout this election in the city, and that happens every single election. But it's because we don't understand that voting is a right. It's a right that we exercise whenever we can. Here in Compton, we exercise it a lot. We exercise it a whole lot. Why? Because let's think about the number of elections that we have had. So we had the March election last year, and then we had the November election, and then of course now we have the city council elections twice, and then for the next year we have another school board election, of course with the March primaries in 2022, and then we have the November 2022 elections. So it's not necessarily that there's voter apathy, it's just that we're constantly voting here in Compton, right? We're constantly voting and constantly having to think about, okay, who are going to be our leaders? Right? It's not necessarily that people are apathetic. It's just that we're constantly voting and constantly having people putting their politics in front, right? We don't necessarily have that break. And when we had that opportunity to do that break, we chose not to exercise that will. And I'm saying about elected officials didn't exercise that will. And this is why for us it becomes really important to put people in power that are going to move the will of the people, not just a select group of people, all the people in our community. Because ultimately that is why we fight for the right to vote. It's not a privilege. If it was a privilege, then we will have an oligarchy. We will have a select few ruling and running things. We don't live in an oligarchy. We live in a democracy, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it becomes important for us to remember that. Because ultimately, if we think that only a select few should decide the future of our community, then we don't believe in democracy. We don't believe in the right of people to vote. We don't trust people with our vote. And that ultimately breaks down our fundamental idea of what is a democracy. It breaks down our ability to really think ahead for the future of our community, because we're constantly thinking about who did we just put up there? Who did we just vote in? And this is where it becomes paramount for us to exercise our right to vote, to exercise a will to change what we have been seeing into something that makes sense. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we have a right to vote, and we have to exercise that right. And so for us, and what I want to make sure that you all understand is, just go out and vote. Just do it. Just go out and vote. Because at the end of the day, you have that right. So go out and vote on or before June 1st. Go out to vote this upcoming June 1st. The ballot box drop-off locations are on screen for you to go out to vote at those locations. And if you prefer to vote in person, on screen you will find the locations in which you can vote in person on those specific days. Please remember to take your ID as well as your sample ballot if you have one. And if you have your ballot, please take it with you to drop it off at these locations on these days.